In northern China stretches a massive wasteland known as the Taklamakan Desert, over 337,000 square kilometers where wind and dust devoured every sign of life for millennia. But something impossible is happening there now. Green forests are spreading across terrain that shouldn't support anything living. Once barren zones where sandstorms erased entire villages are transforming before the world's eyes. The Chinese call this the Green Great Wall, an ecological restoration effort so massive it defies belief. Hundreds of millions of trees planted, millions of hectares reclaimed from sand. How did engineers force life to grow where nature said it never could? Welcome to Macroforge, where we explore the mega projects that challenge everything we thought possible. If massive engineering transformations fascinate you, hit subscribe. Let's discover how China is literally removing billions of tons of sand to turn death zones into living landscapes. For centuries, northern China lived under siege from an enemy most people couldn't see coming: sand. Each time monsoon winds swept down from the Gobi and Taklamakan deserts, massive dust storms blanketed entire cities. Beijing's skies would turn from blue to apocalyptic brown within hours, transforming day into something resembling night. By the 1990s, residents in the capital wore protective masks for over 80 days annually, just to breathe without inhaling fine desert particles blown hundreds of kilometers from the wasteland. The Taklamakan formed millions of years ago through geographical catastrophe. The Tian Shan Mountains to the north and Kunlun Mountains southward created a moisture trap, blocking nearly all precipitation from the Indian Ocean and Siberia. The basin caught between them became a vast arid zone where almost nothing could survive. Average rainfall, less than 100 millimeters annually, roughly 10 times drier than California, already notorious for drought conditions. Put that in perspective. Every square meter of Taklamakan receives approximately the same water volume as a single 500 milliliter bottle weekly. Far too little for vegetation survival. Summer temperatures soar past 40 degrees Celsius. Winter plunges below -20. Sandstorms strike without warning, without mercy, burying anything in their path. But here's what made it catastrophic. This extreme climate combined with human activity, deforestation, overgrazing, excessive groundwater pumping, exhausted what little soil fertility existed and obliterated remaining vegetation. Desertification spread uncontrolled across northern China like a slow-motion plague. Then China made a decision that seemed insane. Faced with expanding desertification threatening to swallow productive land, China refused to retreat. In 1978, officials launched a century-scale initiative called the 3 North Shelter Belt Program. The world knows it as the Green Great Wall. This isn't a single forest barrier. It's a vast interconnected network of thousands of forests, windbreak systems, and ecological zones stretching over 4,500 kilometers from Xinjiang Autonomous Region clear across to Heilongjiang Province, covering nearly the entire northern territory. The goal seemed impossible: plant 35 million hectares of new forest by 2050. Increase national forest coverage from just 10% in 1949 to over 25%. Build the largest human-made project ever constructed on land, not with concrete or steel, but with living trees and human determination. From this audacious vision, humanity's dream of reviving dead lands truly began. But nobody realized just how brutal the execution would become. Chinese engineers faced their first nightmare. How do you plant anything in sand that moves constantly? Traditional approaches failed immediately. They needed something revolutionary. Across the Taklamakan, engineers deployed satellite mapping and drone surveillance to analyze dune movement patterns and wind direction. Based on that data, they designed something nobody had attempted at this scale: massive straw checkerboard grids laid diagonally across the sand, each square roughly 6 meters per side. From aerial views, the land transforms into a gigantic geometric pattern of golden squares stretching toward infinity. Yet behind that simple appearance lies brutal complexity. Millions of pounds of straw must be transported hundreds of kilometers into desert heart, where vehicles sink into soft sand and paved roads don't exist. Getting materials there becomes its own engineering challenge. Then comes the real battle: Teams of workers dig shallow trenches and place straw bundles into precise grid patterns under relentless sun with temperatures exceeding 49 degrees Celsius and zero shade anywhere. Every movement becomes a fight against heat exhaustion, yet thousands of Chinese workers persist. But why? What makes this worth the suffering? Each straw grid serves multiple critical functions. The woven pattern stabilizes shifting dunes, dramatically slowing wind velocity. It creates microclimate zones where moisture can actually linger long enough for seeds to germinate. Without these grids, desert winds would simply blow away any seeds and bury any saplings within days. Once grids are established, mechanical augers and specialized planting machines move in. These drill precise holes at each square's center, preparing substrate for drought-resistant species. Saxaul, desert poplar, red willow. Seedlings carefully nurtured in protected nurseries before transport to this hellish environment get transplanted into each prepared hole at the straw grid center. Workers position each fragile plant with precision so roots settle just below surface level where straw layers shield them from scorching sun and mobile sand. Measured water additions and soil compaction around bases ensure roots contact the moisture layer beneath. As weeks pass, the protective grid continues serving its purpose. Straw keeps surface temperatures lower, reduces evaporation dramatically, prevents fine sand from eroding around developing seedlings. Then something remarkable happens. Over time, the straw gradually decomposes through wind action, dew, and microorganism activity, transforming into an organic, nutrient-rich blanket. This natural fertilizer feeds developing root systems, helping them extend deeper into stable substrate layers below. What began as fragile seedlings slowly evolves into living vegetation networks, a green framework anchoring dunes and beginning the long reclamation process. But China wasn't done yet. The next phase would prove even more ambitious. In the Taklamakan's core, where sunlight hammers down relentlessly, China saw not a curse, but opportunity. This region receives over 2,700 annual sunlight hours, ranking among Earth's highest solar radiation zones. Instead of letting that blazing energy scorch sand uselessly, engineers transformed it into massive renewable power generation. Along the Taklamakan Desert Highway, stretching over 436 kilometers through absolute wasteland, they installed 86 solar-powered pumping stations. Each station hosts hundreds of photovoltaic panels generating electricity to pump groundwater from depths exceeding 100 meters. That water flows through underground pipeline networks distributed via drip irrigation systems, enabling over 200,000 trees to survive along the highway in areas receiving virtually zero rainfall. The result? The Tarim Highway became the world's first carbon-neutral desert expressway, a place where sunlight generates electricity, electricity pumps water, water sustains life, the cycle becomes self-perpetuating. But engineers pushed further. Solar fields were elevated roughly 2 meters above ground level, allowing air circulation beneath and creating shaded zones where additional plant species could establish. Soil beneath panels retains significantly more moisture and stays cooler, supporting species like licorice, red willow, and hawthorn, forming natural green zones under artificial power infrastructure. Here in Taklamakan, solar technology does more than power equipment. It illuminates hope for complete environmental renewal. What was once called the Sea of Death is becoming one of the world's largest ecological transformation laboratories, where sunlight, technology, and human persistence converge into something unprecedented. Then they added concentrated solar power. Alongside standard solar panels, thousands of heliostat mirrors were arranged in wide arcs, each rotating on dual axes, tracking the sun's path across the sky with precision. Reflected light concentrates onto central tower tops where molten salt heats beyond 540 degrees Celsius. That extreme heat generates high-pressure steam, driving turbines and generators producing electricity. But here's the breakthrough. Excess heat gets stored in molten salt reservoirs, allowing continuous power generation at night or during cloudy weather. The system never stops. Building and operating this 50-megawatt solar power tower in Taklamakan's depths costs approximately $130 million, but the energy output sustains the entire greening operation. This technology integration represents something remarkable. Traditional desert reclamation required external power and water sources. This system generates both on-site from the environment itself. The desert provides the energy that defeats the desert. Yet even with vegetation establishing and power flowing, China faced another challenge. How do you actually access these remote transformation zones? The Tarim Desert Highway represents one of Western China's most ambitious infrastructure achievements. Built connecting oasis cities Luntai and Minfeng, it cuts straight through Desert Heart for over 300 kilometers. Construction started in 1993 under conditions that destroyed normal engineering approaches, shifting dunes that reshape daily, sandstorms with zero warning, temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius. Workers operated in rotating shifts because human endurance has absolute limits. The highway officially opened October 4, 1995, after just over 2 years of brutal construction. Project costs reached approximately 1.75 billion yuan, roughly $260 million. Beneath the asphalt lies complex foundation engineering, gravel layers, straw mat reinforcement, geotextile barriers, all designed keeping sand from literally swallowing the road. Without these protective layers, the highway would disappear within months, buried under migrating dunes. Today, this desert highway connects remote solar installations and research stations while serving as an ecotourism gateway, guiding travelers through landscapes once considered completely unreachable. But the real question remained. After decades of effort and billions invested, did any of this actually work? After decades of relentless work, results have exceeded even optimistic projections. Vast green belts now surround almost the entire Taklamakan Desert perimeter. According to official data, China has regreened over 30 million hectares of barren territory. National forest coverage increased from 10% in 1949 to over 25% today. In regions like Aksu and Kashgar, where endless dunes once dominated every view, vast forests now stretch toward horizons. Poplar, hawthorn, almond, walnut trees reaching maturity where nothing should exist. Scientists estimate sandstorm frequency has dropped 82% compared to 1980s levels. Dusty days in Kashgar fell from approximately 100 annually to just 30. The transformation extends beyond statistics. Those once dead lands now absorb over 20,000 tons of CO2 annually, forming what many call the desert's green lungs. The Sea of Death has learned to breathe. Satellite imagery captures the story dramatically. Where brown and gold dominated every image, green ribbons now wind through the landscape, clearly visible from orbital altitudes. Villages rebuilt, agriculture establishing, research facilities developing new drought-resistant crop varieties. What had been dismissed as permanent wasteland became productive territory, supporting communities and contributing to regional stability. But then the questions started emerging. Not everyone agrees this green transformation marks lasting victory. As planted forests matured, problems emerged that threatened the entire effort's sustainability. Many ecologists warn that monoculture reforestation, primarily poplars and willows, leaves ecosystems dangerously vulnerable. These species grow rapidly but have relatively short lifespans and demand substantial groundwater. Then disaster struck. A disease outbreak swept through northern China's planted forests, wiping out over 1 billion poplar trees. Years of backbreaking work erased within growing seasons. The vulnerability of single-species approaches became brutally apparent. Several international studies suggest something even more concerning. During certain periods, desertification actually continued expanding despite reported forest coverage increases. The reason? Trees planted unsuited to local conditions. Rainfall, insufficient sustaining growth long-term. Prolonged irrigation further depleting already stressed groundwater reserves, potentially making underlying problems worse. Experts now argue that for the Green Great Wall to truly succeed sustainably, China must fundamentally shift approach from counting planted trees to measuring ecosystem health. Replace single-species forests with mixed woodlands, including native trees, diverse grasses, natural shrubs. Only by restoring nature's original balanced structure can humanity hope to resist desert advance sustainably rather than temporarily. The Green Great Wall's success remains undeniable, yet it carries an important warning. Not every green landscape represents genuine life if its roots don't truly belong to the soil supporting it. China leveraged the transformation for additional purposes beyond ecology. Along Taklamakan and Gobi borders, artificial forests, solar installations, and water reservoirs evolved into combined science and tourism destinations. Community-based tourism grew, blending eco-lodging with Uyghur and Mongolian cultural experiences. Travelers now join camel riding expeditions across dunes lasting 2 to 5 hours, depending on routes, passing through sweeping sand seas and rest stations established amid the wasteland. Each trip costs between $40 and $120 US. By combining conservation, education, and authentic experience, Taklamakan stands as proof humans can potentially coexist with nature rather than simply dominating it. The transformation created unexpected economic opportunities. Remote regions once written off as worthless now attract visitors, generate employment, support research. The desert that threatened to consume productive land became an asset-driving regional development. You've witnessed how China engineered one of Earth's most ambitious ecological restoration projects, deploying billions of tons of straw, planting hundreds of millions of trees, harnessing solar energy to pump water in regions receiving virtually no rain, building highways through shifting sands, all to transform the Sea of Death into living landscape. The Taklamakan that suffocated cities in dust storms now grows forests visible from space. Yet questions linger about long-term sustainability. What impressed you most? The scale? The technology integration? The sheer determination? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching MacroForge, where we explore the mega projects reshaping our world. See you in the next one.